Thanks, everybody, and thanks for the introduction. We're excited to be here. Just listening to the stats messaged early on there, reinforce, I think, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. There's certainly a lot of excitement going on in the mobile space, and hopefully after going through this, you'll have share some of that enthusiasm. So without further ado here, hang on, sorry. So there's a couple things. I wanted to start off with kind of an ad hoc market research. So if everyone in the room, I don't like participation typically, but I'm going to start out that way. So if everyone could just hold up their cell phone, just always kind of curious to see. I'm assuming everyone has one. And then of the people that have cell phones, who, whether you're from Dallas or not, has done some type of local search while you've been here, whether it's looking for a restaurant, a bar, airline tickets, check-in, et cetera. So pretty big number. And bottom line, if you were to just, this is clearly probably a biased audience of mobile enthusiasts. But at the end of the day, this is exactly what we're seeing, is that consumption and that behavior. And it's really what I think should come across as to what the opportunity really presents for local. So the three things we're going to talk about, a little bit of the overview of the state of mobile, 4 trends that matter from Google's perspective. We're going to give an overview of the advertising products at Google and historically AdMob. These are relevant, I think, to see not only what Google's doing and how you can potentially leverage those types of solutions, but then also to really, I think, see what's possible and what you could potentially be developing for your own businesses in mobile. And then the last section, we're going to actually talk about some of the SMB strategies that have been deployed to date, what marketers are doing, and sharing some case studies on that front. So the 4 trends that we're seeing or that we think are most important, one, that growth is accelerating. It's kind of a no-brainer, and we'll dive into each of these in more detail. 2, openness is what's going to win in the long run. 3, that the browser is actually the next killer app. And 4, mobile consumers are looking for local information. So accelerating growth. I'm going to go through and kind of share some stats. I won't spend too much time on this because we just saw a few statistics. But we're seeing 72% growth of unlimited data plans according to ComScore. And what this means is just that folks have supercomputers in their pocket at all times that are capable of doing all the things that you used to historically do on your PC or your desktop. You now have that functionality within your phone. There's a 400% growth in mobile search queries going from 2008 to 2010. Again, just a significant proliferation of people using these devices all the time. From an AdMob standpoint and what we're seeing on a display perspective, there's 424% growth in mobile display ad requests, which is very significant. Again, you have this phone in your pocket. You're using it all times throughout the day. You're using it for utility. You're using it for entertainment. And there are numerous ways to engage with people from an advertising standpoint from a display perspective. When you think about video, again, was alluded to in the early slides, but there's roughly about 180% increase in mobile video views on YouTube over the last 2 years. So again, just kind of the rising storm that the consumption and what people are doing, they're searching, they're consuming content, they're using it for entertainment, they're using it for utility, and it's in their pocket and with them at all times. I'm assuming most people have seen this Mary Meeker Morgan Stanley report. If you haven't, I think it's actually a pretty pivotal piece of research to check out. If you haven't seen it, you can just simply go to Google and type in Mary Meeker 2010 Internet Trends, and it should come up. There's a wealth of information in there just about overall online trends, and she spends quite a bit of time talking about the rising tide of mobile, and here specifically talking about the fact that mobile users will outnumber desktop users within the next 5 years. So again, when you think about your business, if you're not heavily invested in mobile and thinking through what is the right strategy there, you got to start moving because this tidal wave is happening, and it's really exciting. Everyone's talked about for a long time, is this the year of mobile? Yes, no. I think 2010 has been kind of a watershed moment, whether it's from our perspective at AdMob, the acquisitions that have happened vis-a-vis Google, Quattro and Apple, talks of RIM getting into the advertising space, any number of things, the iPad, Android, et cetera, et cetera. Just a lot of opportunity, and it's incumbent upon yourselves as business leaders to make sure that you're thinking about what is the right strategy to help us out in this mobile ecosystem. New devices are really blurring the line between what is mobile and what is desktop. A couple years ago, a Razr was a pretty significant phone, but all it was a phone. It may have had some very basic texting capabilities. You may have been able to do some very, very basic mobile browsing. The BlackBerry is what ushered in, I think, the notion that you can be using your phones for far more data-intensive activities, so email, some texting, again, more sophisticated browsing. And then the iPhone came about and I think really fundamentally changed things and has ushered in a whole new wave. Piggybacking on top of that, you see Android and its rapid development, and obviously iPad and tablets starts to really blur the lines. There was an interesting article that I just saw riding in the cab this morning from something more retail related, but it said that eBay just recently reported that there are 50% more acquisitions happening or purchases happening on the iPad than they're seeing on PCs or desktops. So people are using these devices more. They're potentially using them more for the core services that you provide. You have to be in front of those users in those places. This is obviously kind of a no-brainer, but smartphones are going to surpass feature phones probably in 2011. This is driven by obviously the proliferation of handsets and just the marketing and the notion of what's capable with cell phones. We consider a smartphone basically anything that has a full internet browser. And I think, again, you can go to Walmart today and buy a 16 gigabit iPhone for $100. LG has, or Android, there's an Android phone through LG, the Ally, that sells for $50 through Verizon. So as the price comes down, there's just going to be a flood of more and more devices, and it becomes more and more ubiquitous for every individual in the US. Taking a look at just some proprietary search data. So this is search queries for San Francisco with local intent, about 500 and normalized over the last 3 years, and this is all of mobile searches. And so we wanted to kind of just show, in a market, let's say like San Francisco, all the types of searches for San Francisco restaurants and bars and driving directions and ATMs and things of that nature, what has that growth looked like? And then we've overlaid on top of that the release of significant smartphones that have come out into the marketplace. And you can see that every new device that comes out has a direct correlation to increased demand. So again, more people that have phones, the more they're using them, the more they're searching, the more they're browsing, the more they're using applications. It's very, very straightforward, and again, is a compelling story as to why mobile should be a significant portion of your strategy. So this is just actually the same terms looking over a 2-year time period and only looking at smartphones. And you can see the acceleration of growth is that much more significant. So it's only grown 11 times over the 2 years, but you can see that curve is definitely a little steeper and more up and to the right. So again, more people, more phones, more powerful phones with them at all times. They're using that device for everything, quite frankly. We know at Google that offline does drive online behavior. So we can see when people are either, it could be a very compelling billboard. It could be something like a great TV ad, a magazine ad. You're starting to see QR codes in the back. They're in magazines. Offline behavior is driving online. This is an example of what we saw during the 2010 Super Bowl with mobile searches for specific advertising campaigns that were running during the Super Bowl. So clearly the GoDaddy ad, Dockers, The Who performed at halftime. People are sitting on their couches watching the games, and they, in some cases might have their laptop. They may now have an iPad, but they typically are certainly going to have their phones at their disposal, and they are using that all throughout the day. Again, just kind of, I think, I'm probably beating a dead horse here talking about that rising tide of how people are using their device, but I don't think we can overstate the significance of how powerful these devices are, how ubiquitous they are, and how many are just coming out. So the second thing from Google's perspective is that we think openness will win. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I think this is one of the overarching principles at Google and was what really ushered in the notion of developing Android was that open platform. that could be a game changer in the mobile ecosystem. And when you look at how Android has performed, it's pretty staggering. There are currently 60 compatible devices running the Android operating system. There are 21 OEMs, 48 countries where Android is live, and there are 59 carriers that are, providing service for Android devices. So just huge, huge, huge. If you ever, or at least from our perspective, we get the chance to hear Eric Schmidt talk, and he really talks about how this has been a fundamental success for Google has been the proliferation of Android. And I think it has added to an incremental layer of just this tidal wave of opportunity from a mobile perspective. Microsoft coming out with Windows Mobile 7 is going to be another one of those. I think there's just tremendous development and innovation happening, whether it's from operating systems like iOS, whether it's Android, whether it's Windows Mobile 7, BlackBerry, et cetera. This is just going to continue to cascade and has been a tremendous force in driving the mobile adoption. There are 200,000 new activations of phones every day from an Android standpoint. In Q2, it was the first time that Android actually was the #1 selling smartphone. 33% of all smartphones sold in Q2 were Android devices. And according to some stats that we have at AdMob, again, at AdMob, we run advertising across multiple operating systems. We're now seeing more display ad traffic coming from Android than any other operating system that's out there. So, just again, a really significant rising tide of what's happening operating system-wise. The third thing is that we really think that the browser is the next killer app. A lot of people talk about, well, is it an app world or is it a browser world? There's certainly, I think it's still too early to tell in a lot of ways, and most companies that we work with and that we talk to are having a dual-pronged strategy. Applications are certainly incredibly hot and have a lot of opportunity, but the mobile web is also incredibly beneficial and has a lot of upside. One of the most, I think, interesting things or most relevant things about why mobile web is significant is that it allows for that development time. You can develop one really significant mobile website and have that run and operate across all operating systems. So within mobile, fragmentation is a challenge. You have iOS, you have Android, you have RIM, you have Windows Mobile 7. If you are thinking exclusively application, then you're going to need to develop and iterate each one of those applications. From a mobile web standpoint, if you develop a really rich mobile website, then you have the opportunity to use that, innovate on that one mobile website, and have it be replicable on every operating system. So from a scale and efficiency perspective, it's a fantastic way to go. What is it going to take for mobile web to, I think, really take off is HTML5. And so I think Google's a big believer in HTML5. What's been very compelling about applications is their ability to use the native features of the phone. So whether it's the GPS or the camera, the accelerometer, all the types of things that make the new superphones and smartphones really interesting. Typically, the applications are what allow people to tap into those. As HTML5 progresses, there's going to be incredible ways that you can use that same